Justice system demands more than sound policies. It also requires infrastructure to support equitable access and timely delivery. The Minister of Works, David Umahi, reiterated this when he emphasized that infrastructure development is central to achieving efficiency and fairness in the country's judicial processes. Speaking at the fourth day of the 2024 Court of Appeal Justices Annual Conference, Umahi noted that access roads, courtrooms and judicial quarters, power supply and electronic infrastructure will reduce delays in adjudication, promote qualitative and quantitative judicial productivity. Ade, let me start with you.
I absolutely agree with him that there's really a synergy between the justice system and then infrastructure. Because the working environment of judges, for instance, is quite important into a delivery of the justice system. And I also think when we are talking about the judiciary, we are not just talking about judges alone. We are talking of the civil service who work in that environment. We are talking of the prisons. We are talking of the police. We are talking of the, we are talking of roads. We are talking about even their offices and their, where they live. So I think there's no doubt that part of the things we need to consider is that infrastructure provision, where judges work in a conducive environment. It's just like the education sector. If the infrastructure is not there, it's going to affect the capacity of students to learn and also the output of the education process. So I absolutely agree with him that infrastructure needs to play a critical role if we are talking about the justice delivery system. They need an efficient environment to work, housing, the police, the prisons, and all sorts of agencies that are linked up to the judicial system. So I think I agree with him. I also commend him for what he has been doing, in terms of infrastructure, especially in the area of roads. So if he's extending the frontiers to the other agencies like judicial and I think that's quite commendable. He's one of the ministers that stands out in this regime as a huge plus that we cannot see the work that is. We can feel him, we can see the great work that he's doing. So I wish him the best of luck.
All right, Mayor. Minister Umahi is saying improved access roads, courtrooms, judicial quarters, power supply, and electronic infrastructure will reduce delays.
Yes. What he's saying is that we should improve the working environment of our judicial officers. In his own case, it's just roads. It's not in a position to provide the other things. But I agree absolutely with him that we need to improve the infrastructural environment within our judicial space. But that has to be done under the purview of the judicial officers. A situation where the judiciary is beholden to the executive to provide all these infrastructures needed is not good. Okay. It influences the course of justice. And so it is what we should look at is how the judiciary will be able to have enough resources under the purview of the Chief Justice to be able to provide all these things that we are, all this infrastructure that we are talking about.
Budgetary allocation.
Yes, through budgetary allocation. Because part of the problem is that in most cases, it is the executive that provide all these things. The environment that a lot of our judicial officers are on, the environment where they work is not conducive, and it affects the delivery of justice. But we should not allow, it's not an ideal thing for the executive to be the one that will provide those things. For example, Wike is building houses, quarters for appeal court justice. I don't support that. That is not right.
Why not?
Because they are not under his purview.
That's not Wike's personal money.
No, it doesn't matter. Appeal court justices are not under FCT. What he's supposed to provide is for people within FCT, not for appeal court judges who are federal officers. Because if tomorrow Wike has a case in front of these appeal court justices, it may influence them one way or the other. So instead of them to be in a situation where what should be naturally provided for them was not available, and it takes the magnanimity of an executive to provide those things, it's not right. Instead, we should have a situation where they will have these resources under the judicial officers who are administering justice to be able to provide all these things for them. I agree that all these things are needed. The only problem is that we should create a situation where they will have enough funding within the judiciary to do those things instead of them waiting on the executive. In other words, if an executive is not happy with the judiciary, it may deny them these things. It shouldn't be like that. Until the president, Bola Tinubu, became governor in Lagos, the situation in Lagos judiciary was the informational system was almost nothing. But, you know, the former VP, who was then the commissioner for justice in Lagos State, was able to worked on building courtrooms that have ACs, that have infrastructure that will aid the justices in what they do. And we saw that they provided them with official cars, official quarters, and all that. Nice, it's good. But what I'm saying is that it will be better if there is enough funds within the judiciary for them to be able to provide those things for themselves, so that they will not be influenced one way or the other by the activities of the executive.
All right, I don't know if Madi agrees with this. What he's saying is that the judiciary should be able to take care of its own needs without the executive doing this for the judiciary. Do you agree? I
absolutely agree with him, because the National Judicial Commission that was created under Section 1553, subsection 1 of 1999 Constitution, is supposed to handle issues of, judicial needs. And I think we should not gamble with the risk of putting the judiciary under the armpit of the executive. So there is the independence of the arms of government is one of the greatest elements of democracy. The judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. So by the time that executives begin to buy cars, begin to build houses for judges, there is a temptation that they will like to dance to the tunes of the executive. So I think we need the Judicial Service Commission to be more independent, so that judges can address all the needs of judges under that commission. The executive taking that role, it takes, the risk of overloading itself on the activities of our judges. And I think this is a very major challenge that we need to tackle with this democratic dispensation.
Because the minister also acknowledged other challenges. He talked about funding constraints and bureaucratic delays. I mean, why should this be a challenge in this age and time?
It's because they don't have enough funds. It's just the same problem. Unlike the legislature, the legislative arm of government is it's not as if they are independent, but they have resources of their own. Do you understand? They have resources of their own. So they can do a lot of things. But the judiciary don't have that. They still depend largely on the executive, which shouldn't be so. Things are getting better, but we are not there yet. It is important, because what he's saying is that all the other things they need, for example, it is not only for those courts to be accessible or to electronic. What he's saying is that there are still some places where judges still take notes in longhand and do all those things. Whereas in this age, they need electronic and things that will aid them to be able to assist in them to make their job easier. You understand? They need to be in a comfortable environment that has enough AC. Not that when they take, like, the judge will say, I rise, he won't be able to sit because of the heat within the court, things like that. Or he doesn't have enough, not have a good car to be able to come to work. All these infrastructures are very important. That's why I can say. But it will be better if the Nigerian Judicial Commission can provide that under the CJ, will be able to provide those things based on the funds available to the judiciary, instead of them beholding on the executive.
All right, earlier you talked about the independence of the judiciary. How does the judiciary defend its independence?
Well, defending the judiciary is not its own responsibility alone. The civil society organizations, the government itself, the media, it's our battle, because it's about entrenching the norms of democracy to meet global standards. So we have the responsibility to defend the independence of the judiciary, because if the judiciary happens to be an arm of the executive, then we are not talking about democracy. The principle of democracy is separation of powers. If there is no separation of powers, what you are going to have is either a monarchy or a fascist government. So we need to, it's in our own interest, to defend the separation of powers. So I think that we have to support. Judges cannot come out all the time to speak out because of the strategic positions that they occupy. But that's part of the role of the media, the civil society, and also the legislation. We should do it in line with our constitution, which is clearly stated the separation of powers. So it's going to nurture democracy. It's going to enrich democratic principles, to the benefit of all of us. So I think it's our collective responsibility to define the separation of powers so that democracy can thrive.
So, Mayor, the same question, how does the judiciary defend its independence?
2 ways. One, for them to be financially independent. Mm-hmm. When they are financially independent, they will not need the executive to provide, like we've been discussing, the basic things that they need. That is one. 2, for Nigeria Judicial Commission to be alive to its responsibilities. In every society, in every organization, there will be bad eggs. So the Nigerian Commission should be very hard on judges that have been seen to compromise their position. When judges know that if you are caught or it's proven that you have betrayed the trust of your position, then you will be sanctioned. That will serve as a check, because there is a lot of problem of judges being induced. There are some judges that have been found not to have acted properly, and the Nigerian Judicial Commission have sanctioned them. But it should be something that should be done regularly, and should be something that should be zero tolerance from misdemeanor within the judicial space. And if judges know that if you are found to be wanting, or if you have betrayed the trust, or you have done things you shouldn't have done, you will be sanctioned. I think that will weed out the bad eggs.
Do you advocate for a stiffer penalty?
Yes, I believe so too. That's why I said they should be alive to their responsibilities. Any judge that has stepped out of line should be sanctioned, no matter what, and they should do that regularly. The CJ should make sure that the Nigerian Judicial Commission has zero tolerance for judges who step out of line.
So, Ade, do you think there is enough work or so much to do with the new CJN?
Yeah, I think so much work to do, and I think it has started on a very remarkable note, based on the mission statement that he designed for himself. He spoke about fighting corruption in the judiciary, and then about speedy delivery of justice, dealing with bureaucratic bottlenecks in the judiciary. So I think that's a very noble mission. And I believe he has started well. We have seen some judges being queried. We have seen some being, asked to answer a lot of questions. So it's a good beginning. All she needs is support from all of us, because she cannot do it alone. If she begins this process and there's no public support, within the shortest time, she might be consumed by the typical Nigerian, environment. So we need to encourage her. We need to,
All right, gentlemen, let's move on to